Welcome to another video. Today I want to share with you a recipe that has to do with lacto-fermentation. This recipe originally started out as kimchi, but has since evolved into something else. I don't know really what to call it at this point, but it can be quite tasty, and if there are any ingredients that you don't like, that you don't want to add, you simply don't really have to add them. Okay, so let's get into it. Okay, so I'm going to start with grating some beets into a flat-bottomed bowl. A bowl with a flat base can be very useful when making any type of lacto-fermented food, especially when you have to, particularly when mashing up the ingredients. That way you are less liable to spill any of the contents from the bowl, potentially tipping over. Now I am going to go ahead and grate in the cabbage. Either green or red cabbage should work just fine. In this case, I am using the green cabbage. Now here I am adding in some green beans from the garden that I froze for over the winter. I find that they can also be a nice, nutritious, and crunchy addition to the whole mix. Next I add in some frozen squash that I harvested from the garden earlier in the fall. Note that this squash has been cooked before being frozen. Since this squash has been cooked, the enzymes and the friendly bacteria on the squash has been killed off. However, since I'm adding in a bunch of other raw foods into this recipe, that should help to supplement the deficit of these bacterias and enzymes missing in the squash. However, if I was lacto-fermenting a food that was predominantly made up of cooked ingredients or all cooked ingredients, I may want to add in a live active culture like sauerkraut juice or whey, and I also want to make sure that I'm adding in enough salt so that the lacto-fermentation process is successful. Then I add in some chopped celery. I also like to add in some celery leaves if there are any. I'm going to grate in the ginger. Next, I am going to add the garlic. I'm going to grate it into the mixture using a fine tooth grater. Then I just slice up an apple and add that in as well. Since I'm only going to be lacto-fermenting this for a few days, I like to chop up the carrots and steam them. That helps to soften up the fibrous texture and helps them to integrate in with the rest of the ingredients. Periodically throughout this whole process of adding the ingredients, every so often I add in some salt so it can create the saline environment in which the lactobacilli bacteria can thrive. And then I just mash it all up for about 10 to 20 minutes. I'm using a wooden tool to do this, or you can just use your hands. Finally, I add it into some mason jars and I pack it down real tight. If it needs a little bit more brine, you can add some salt water on top. And I will let this ferment out on the counter for about 3 to 5 days. You can also ferment it for longer. It really comes down to your taste and preferences. Once I have filled the jars, then I just put a towel on top. And again, I let it sit on the counter for a few days. Once you feel it is done fermenting, you can put a lid on the jar and store it in the fridge. Here is a finished jar. You can see as I press the spoon down into the jar, all the carbon dioxide, you can see the mixture beginning to bubble, so that is a good sign. And this is ready to use. Well, thank you for watching, and I look forward to seeing you in another video.